Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, where meaningful conversations inspire leadership, connection, and possibility. Hosted by Dr. Summer Watson, this internationally recognized podcast features women who are making an impact in business, community, education, healthcare, and beyond. Through honest stories and practical wisdom, we explore what it means to lead, grow, and thrive in a rapidly changing world. And now, your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, where today I'm joined by Eliza Young, whose life story is one of extraordinary resilience, courage, and perspective. From surviving severe childhood health challenges and over 20 surgeries before the age of 18, to navigating parental kidnappings, to later developing breast cancer connected to 9/11 exposure. Eliza has faced circumstances that could have easily defined her life through pain alone. Instead, she chose something different. In this conversation, we talk about the power of mindset, what it means to actively choose positivity without denying hardship, and how trauma can become a pathway towards purpose, strength, and a more captivating life. Welcome, Eliza.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
I am excited to talk to you. You have had a journey. So before we dive into that journey, if you could describe your life to this point in one word, what would that word be and why?
Resilience. I feel that my life has been a series of twists and turns, which is common for a lot of people, but mine have been a little bit more dramatic and just always bouncing back, allowing myself to grieve or feel the wounds, but then not staying there and pulling myself back up and keeping going.
You know, Eliza, it is so important that you said that because in many people's stories, so I went forward and I'm resilient and this is the way I bounce back, but they didn't mention that you can still feel the pangs of trauma as you're working through all of that. And I think that not being dismissive like that and actually embracing that trauma helps you move with it and move through it.
I agree. And I think that we are sometimes so eager to get past it, to put it behind us. But I think of it almost like I live in Florida. So when you go into the ocean, you have to address the waves, right? And I walk crooked, I have a leg difference. So if I try to stay standing and walk into the ocean, the waves are going to knock me over. But if I dive into it, the wave passes by and then I can stand up again. And that's how I think about it. You have to honor it. It's in your DNA now, but you don't have to hold on to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It truly is part of your DNA. And I love that analogy of the duck dive into the ocean. As somebody who grew up on the coast in California, yeah, when you actually don't just pound into that wave and you dive under that wave, it makes it a lot easier.
Right. It passes through you instead of knocking you down.
Absolutely. So I want to start with your story because your journey is incredibly powerful and complex. I would like you to give the listeners kind of a high level overview of your journey to understand the context of what we will be talking about today.
Okay, so I was born in 1967, and there was a pandemic at the time, right at the end of the year, called the Hong Kong flu. And I got sick, and I was just a couple months old. And my mother and father were artists, and my mom was kind of dealing with raising me on her own. And she had this book by this popular nutritionist at the time called Adele Davis, who talked about the benefits of vitamins. And this was before anyone knew that vitamins could become toxic. And she read that vitamin A in particular was like a magic pill. So she started giving me massive doses with the best intentions, but it caused permanent damage. I was the first diagnosed case of something called hypervitaminosis A, and I was only 3 months old when I was first hospitalized. The doctors didn't know what to do, so I had a lot of surgeries as they were trying to figure it out. They told my parents I could be fine, I could be dwarfed, I could pass away at an early age. They had no idea. Meanwhile, my parents started fighting. My father blamed my mother, and this huge custody battle ensued. So my whole childhood, until I left just before I turned 18, was chaotic between in and out of the hospital and my parents fighting. My father kidnapped me from my mother a total of 4 times. And my mother took me from my father, but I don't even consider it a kidnapping because she went to the civil court and said, "What happens if I take my daughter across state lines?" Now, the thing is, a lot of this story is about a period of time that doesn't exist anymore. We have technology, we have the ability to communicate. None of that was around then. You didn't have cell phones or internet, so access to information was limited. Medical care was different. They kept you in the hospital for months. I mean, I would go in 2 days before surgery. Now you go in the morning of and rarely stay overnight. So I would go in for months at a time. My parents were fighting, and courts didn't honor custody from state to state. So that's where the kidnappings came in. My father would take me from New York to Massachusetts and file for custody, and that would override the custody. So it was a very complicated battle. And I was in the middle of it all. And I had to maintain positivity to get through it. That's how I saw it. So that's kind of what brought me through, was like somehow, some way, I'm going to get through it. And so it was very intense and it caused trauma, but it was also what gave me strength to do some of the things that I do today.
Thank you for sharing that unique journey in your childhood. There's a lot to it, and our stories can be complex. So, Eliza, you've experienced situations that many people could not even imagine, from severe health struggles to parental kidnappings to surviving near the World Trade Center on 9/11, and as a result, having breast cancer. How did those experiences shape your perspective on resilience and survival?
Well, honestly, when I got to 18 years old and I left home, I didn't want to have anything to do with doctors or medical facilities. And other than the birth of my children, I didn't have health insurance. I wasn't on any medication. I didn't do any of it. I just stayed away. So when 9/11 happened, my father had passed away, and I went to New York. We had a very complicated history, so I hadn't seen him for 5 years, and I'm the only child. So I go and I'm doing my duty and I'm trying to figure out my relationship to my past. And then 9/11 happens. And that was like, okay, this is this other crisis I have to deal with. I wasn't thinking about it in the perspective that other people would think about it because of my personal chaotic upbringing. And I put it all behind me. But I registered with the World Trade Center Health Registry, and they'd send me, surveys. Are you sad? Are you having nightmares? And I'd be like, nope, 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 I'm fine. So when I got breast cancer 17 years later, I was floored because I had spent my whole life trying to be proactive. I mean, I'm not a health nut, but I cook most of my own food. I've always stayed active. I've just always tried to live as clean a life without being, obsessive about it, haven't been on medication or anything. And then I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I've got to go back to the hospital because it put me back into the whole medical system where they're contacting me all the time and they're testing me and they're doing this. It really kind of took me down several notches when it happened. And then when I connected, having been at the World Trade Center, to why I got breast cancer, because it was very abnormal. I had 3 tumors in both breasts, but there was not in my lymph nodes. So that's not how cancer behaves. It starts somewhere and it spreads, but these had developed independently. And so the doctors were mystified and they were like, let's test this genetic marker, let's test this one. And finally, I connected the dots. And when I realized that I had gotten breast cancer from 9/11, and then I was there because I was there dealing with my father's stuff, it forced me to deal with my past in a way that I had been avoiding. And that's actually why I decided to write a memoir about my childhood, because I kind of made a deal with God, as it were. Like, all right, I'll do it. Because I've always known I needed to tell my story, but I've resisted it because I don't want to be defined by it. And so I was like, no, no, I'll do it sometime. I'll do it. And then when that happened, I was like, okay, if you heal me, I'll write it. And I did. It was a test, to be sure.
Well, and there are certain things in our lives that get us to that point where we have to do that additional reflection.
Oh, for sure. Because I had spent a lot of time working on myself, but I had done it to a degree where, it's like you can have the vault and then you can have the inner vault that's behind the secret door thing. And that was kind of what I had to be like, no, we have to get it all out. And I realized that I was carrying shame about my disability. I was carrying shame about what had happened, like I was broken, like I was damaged. It was frustrating because the way my disability presents itself, it's in my legs. So if I'm sitting down, no one knows there's anything wrong with me.
Right.
Not wrong is not the right word, but there's not anything different. But then when I stand up or I walk, I see their expression change. I see how they go, oh. And especially when it comes to dating and social experiences where image and appearance is more valued, I would always feel like I'm kind of shrink. And I had to push that shame out and be like, wait a minute, this isn't mine.
Yeah.
I don't need this anymore. And so I started changing the way I dress. I started going out more. I started dancing and not caring if I'm wobbly. But it took a lot to push that deep stuff out.
Yeah. You've done a lot of work, and that's so important. And getting into that vault is like that deeper, meaningful work that helps you keep moving forward. That segued right into my next question. Looking back at your childhood and into adulthood, with everything you have gone through physically and emotionally, what helped you keep moving forward?
So I do this little trick where I like see my life a certain period of time ahead, usually about a year. So I think, what do I want my life to be like in a year? And then I think back a year. Now, when I was younger, the time frame was probably shorter because time is relative, but that's what I do now. So like I think about it so that it makes me realize that progress is happening even when it doesn't feel like it's happening. And so I see myself there, whatever it is I want to experience, whatever I am afraid of. If it's a surgery, I see myself after the surgery. And not just after the surgery, I see myself after the whole procedure when I'm off crutches or whatever, living my life happy and free. So that is the energy I'm attracting, not the fear, because the fear is always there, right? It's always there. In my opinion, it's not about silencing the fear, it's just quieting it. It's almost like, when you're at the dining table and there's a little toddler and that keeps asking the question over and over. You don't want to say, shut up to the toddler, but you want to be like, shh, just a minute, just a minute. So that voice isn't the most important. It still needs to be acknowledged. The fear has to be heard, but I don't want it to be the loudest voice. So I focus on the future.
Well, there's so much there in that answer that I could touch on. And that fear, really, as you put it, could be that loud voice. It could be that voice that's manipulating your thoughts. And yet, you don't want that voice to be the only one that defines you.
Mhm.
That's number one. And then when you talk about how you look at that year and work backwards, and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Deconstructing a year. That would be cool.
It's a manageable time frame, especially as an adult, right?
Yeah.
We can remember that much. And 6 months, I don't feel is enough. It just works for me. It's been very helpful.
Well, there's so much here. You said that your life in captivity as a child is what drives you to seek a captivating life as an adult.
Mhm.
Can you talk more about what that means and how people can begin reclaiming their own lives after hardship?
Yeah, so for me, I felt as a child because I did spend so much time in the hospital and that made me super shy. And I was also out of school for a long time. I felt like I missed out on a lot of things. And so when I got to be an adult, I wanted to do the things that I could do, whatever I could do. So I've always been very open to new experiences. And the experience that I'm seeking now of a captivating life is I'm in the process of moving to Spain, which is this huge, huge adventure. But for me, the skills that I had as a child that I used to deal with that trauma, all that time in the hospital, how I had to wait, how I had to see my objective and be confident I was going to get there and not kind of wallow in whatever present state I was in, has allowed me to do this. So that has given me like the fire to be like, I'm not going to wait because I don't know if I would really do it if I hadn't had that experience because it's so hard. It's so much work. And big changes in our life are often hard, whether it's a new job, ending a relationship, starting one. It's emotional and physical and often financial challenges. And yet, for me, I again see ahead and I know that I'm going to have so much joy in my life that it's worth it. I think to answer your question, Everyone has whatever it is that they find is a captivating life to them. And see it. Don't wish for it. Don't dream for it. See it in your head like you're watching a movie of what's already happened. And know that you're worth having it. That's a big one, right? We don't feel like we'll ever have it. So that's why I say don't dream it, because dream is like a fantasy. It's something we hope will come to us. This isn't something that comes to us. This is something we have to manifest directly with our actions and our desires. No one's going to come and say, here's a ticket and a moving company to take you to Spain. I've had to do all the work, but I also have to believe that I'm worth the outcome. I'm worth the reward, right?
Absolutely.
I'm worth that captivating life. And that, I think, is probably the first step. And then what is it to you?
Well, you beat me to my last question, but there was so much here that you had unpacked and disclosed just now. The internal fire. So we all have somewhat of an innate resilience and a learned resilience, right? So we have that innate fire. Some of us have just a spark, some of us have a big flame, some of us have that. And it's based on experiences. And there are multiple contributing factors that influence that behavior, what each of us go through. And then we have what is learned in regards to our resilience. When we got pushed down, how did we get back up? What were the steps that you took to get back up? Was there anybody helping you get back up? Was there anybody encouraging you? How did you encourage yourself? So you went through this, that your evolution shows how this happened both innately and learned in learned ways. And so it has culminated into a journey. And so as we come to the close of the interview, my last question for you is, for someone listening who may feel overwhelmed by their own challenges right now, what is one piece of advice or one mindset shift that could help them begin moving from surviving into truly living?
So another technique that I've used that I didn't even really understand what I was doing until I wrote my book and started to try to put it into words is focusing on the positive whenever possible. So I feel that positivity is like a superpower. It is not something that comes naturally. We have to actively seek it out because the negative comes at us. The negative is louder, right? Because the negative is usually what's triggering our fight or flight and or trauma or whatever. But the positive is always there, even if it's the sun shining, you slept in that morning, whatever. If for some reason you don't have a positive experience that day, then I would focus on past positive experience. I almost think of it like a squirrel collecting those acorns for the winter. I would do that. I spent so much time as a child by myself in the hospital because the hospital was far from my parents. So I had to really be in my own thoughts a lot. And so I would focus on those things that were pleasurable and I would amplify them, almost like saturating the color on a picture. I would make it brighter and bigger. The negative was still there, but I would just try to minimize it. And then that would kind of give me the strength, to go on. It doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge the negative, but focusing on the positive actively, that's the big thing. You can't do it passively. If you pass an accident, for example, go, oh, thankfully that didn't happen to me. I pray for them, but you can be thankful. You can be thankful for things that don't happen, thankful for positive things that do, but that would be it. Focus on the positive in a big way, like make it a lion's share of your brain power.
Well, thank you, Eliza, for joining me for this amazing conversation on the Core Women podcast today.
Thank you too. I've enjoyed it very much.
You're welcome. You can connect with Eliza Young on Facebook at A Captivating Life Book, on Instagram at Captivating Eliza, and TikTok at a.captivating.life.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may benefit from it. To learn more about Dr. Summer Watson, visit corewomen.com, where you'll find leadership and organizational development consulting, mentorship solutions, virtual assistant services through Core Business Solutions, the Human Forward Movement, and the Human Room, a space for meaningful conversations about keeping people at the center of leadership, business, and community. Dr. Watson is also available to facilitate and moderate engaging one-on-one interviews, panel discussions, and group conversations that inspire connection, learning, and action. Until next time, lead with purpose, connect with intention, and remember to put people first and on purpose.